Besides both T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman Jr., the Colts have been kind of lacking a go-to big-time wide receiver. Obviously, Pittman is pretty good, but the Colts may have just found their next great superstar shining player after they drafted Adonai Mitchell. Mitchell has a pretty crazy story. At one point, he was an underrated recruit, ended up at Georgia, won a national championship there, and then almost led Texas to one. He absolutely showed out in his 1 year at the Longhorns, and now he'll head over to Indianapolis after being a second-round pick, and many are super excited for him. But who is Adonai Mitchell? Today we're going to talk about him, go through his journey, talk about his story, and how he fits with the Colts. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Adonai Mitchell. In order to understand who Adonai Mitchell is, we first need to go back in time. His real name is Adonai, but most people call him AD, and he was born in Missouri City, Texas back in 2002. His dad was huge on football and actually wanted his son to play quarterback. His youth football coach agreed, saying, quote, "Vince Young was popular, and we thought he could run the offense and really be special." So yeah, Adonai spent the first few years of his youth football career playing the quarterback position and was actually pretty good at it. When he eventually got to Ridge Point High School, he was a pretty big deal. As a junior in 2019, he played both quarterback and wide receiver, but was now mainly a receiver. He'd wanted to play quarterback, but that's honestly more because he was raised to be one. Once he started doing receiver drills, it was apparent that he was too good not to be playing that position. His coach said, quote, "My oldest son was there, and he always talks about when he was trying to cover him. He cut so quick and so fast that black pellets from the turf just flew up in his face." Adonai was a pretty big deal, and he got his first scholarship offer before that season. He ended up getting it from Incarnate Word, but later added offers from both Kentucky and Tennessee after he attended a couple of their camps. He ended up wowing the coaching staff and looked like a high major prospect. That season, he ended up completing 5 of 14 passes for 74 yards and a touchdown, rushed for 170 yards and 5 scores, and did most of his damage as a wide receiver. He caught 25 passes for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns. After the season was over, he was named to the Texas 6A district team and was one of the more athletic players in his high school division. Between his junior and senior campaign, him and his family moved from Missouri City, Texas to the state of Tennessee, and he would go to Cane Ridge High School. This is just a few miles away from Nashville, and this was an added bonus as he was now closer to SEC programs and was much easier to scout. He wasn't going to be lost in the shuffle of other Houston area prospects and all the other talent that comes out of the state of Texas. He could sort of shine. By the time he was a senior in 2020, AD was rated as a 3-star recruit in the class of 2021 and was the 9th overall recruit in the state of Tennessee. He was a borderline blue chip player, and everybody loved him, but he just didn't get that 4th star. Scouts saw his enormous potential and had offers from schools such as Kentucky, Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Texas, and Georgia. Before his senior year started, he would decide to end it and commit to Ole Miss, but that was short-lived as he'd only stay committed to the Rebels for a couple of months before Kirby Smart convinced him to flip. Smart said, quote, "We thought he was a talented player, and he's another one of those guys that we did a good job researching, and we don't care where they are ranked or what the media says. We just watch the tape, and his tape speaks volume." On committing to Georgia, AD said, quote, "It's Georgia. You have to have a winning mindset, and you know you're going to be a playoff contender. You know you're not settling for less there." Before the season started, he was named a preseason player, and during his senior campaign at Cane Ridge, he threw for 170 yards, ran for 203 and 4 touchdowns, and then ended up catching 28 passes for 417 yards and 5 touchdowns. He led his team to a 9-4 record, and then would decide to enroll early at Georgia. According to 24/7 Sports, he ended up getting his 4th star, as he was listed as a 4-star player, the number 63 wideout, and the 383rd best player in the class of 2021. So how did he end up doing at Georgia? Well, let's take a look. When he would arrive at Georgia, he had a decent amount of hype, and actually made an impact right when he got to campus. In the spring game, he ended up catching 7 passes for 105 yards and a touchdown, and this was as a true freshman. It would also come after George Pickens got hurt, and Kirby Smart said, quote, "We lost George Pickens, and it forced Mitchell to play more, and he picked it up fast. He's a competitor, he makes plays down the field, and for a guy that just enrolled, he did a good job." After that, he would carve out a role for himself as a true freshman, as he would get a chance to play for the Bulldogs and was led by quarterback Stetson Bennett. In Week 3 against South Carolina, he had a game that would earn him SEC Freshman of the Week. In a victory over the Gamecocks, he ended up catching 4 passes for 77 yards and a touchdown. That was definitely his most notable game, as other than that, he didn't do a whole lot. He did have 5 catches against Tennessee, and he scored a touchdown on the road against Auburn, but then he would make an impact in the postseason. He ended up catching a touchdown in their win over Michigan, and then would have a touchdown in their win over Bama. This gave Georgia their first national championship in an eternity, and Mitchell broke out at the right time. As a freshman, he finished with 29 catches for 426 yards and 4 touchdowns. This is exactly what the Georgia staff brought him in to do, and he made an impact at the biggest moment. In the national championship game, he ended up catching that go-ahead touchdown, and Kirby Smart said, quote, "Growing up, every kid that plays football dreams of being on a stage like that." George Pickens would leave for the 2022 NFL Draft, and it looked like Adonai Mitchell could be a top 2 wideout on the team. Unfortunately, he would not get to have his breakout season in 2022, as there were a couple of factors why he fell off. The biggest one was that he suffered an ankle injury early on in that season, and it really minimized his role on the team that year. For example, taking a look at his game log, he only played in 2 regular season games. In their matchup against number 11 Oregon, Mitchell caught 4 passes for 65 yards and a touchdown, and his only other reception came against Samford. Georgia would once again go to the college football playoff, and Mitchell would once again catch touchdown. In an absolute thriller against number 4 Ohio State, Mitchell would catch 3 passes, including a touchdown. They won 42-41, and then in their blowout over number 3 TCU, he caught a 22-yard touchdown pass as well. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell was on the bench that year, but it was not because of talent. It was because of things out of his control, and that injury was a bummer. I wonder what he could have done if he was fully healthy that year, but we would never find out, as Georgia would bring in both Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett from the portal, and now Mitchell would put himself in the portal. He was listed as a 5-star recruit and arguably the best playmaker in the entire portal. He would decide to commit to Texas, and this would be a lot closer to home for him. He said that was the majority of the reason why he decided to become a Longhorn, and he said, quote, "When I was 12 hours away, I didn't get much time with my family and my daughter. Being here, I've been able to spend more time with her over the last few weeks than in the past 2 years. Part of being home is wanting to be with my child, and I was making incredible memories at Georgia, but it was hard to appreciate them because I knew I was missing out at home." Texas would end up being the perfect place for A.D. Mitchell, as he'd also get an opportunity to play in a little bit more pro-style offense and maybe put up even better stats to increase his draft stock. Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian was not just intrigued with his athleticism, but was also intrigued that he played quarterback and had the ability to run the football. He said, quote, "Think about it. He played quarterback, and he was like an option quarterback running the ball. Even though he's like 6'4", he operates like a 5'8" guy running the football." While at Texas, A.D. Mitchell would be paired alongside Xavier Worthy, and led by quarterback Quinn Ewers, they would have an incredible year. Mitchell would catch a touchdown pass in their Week 1 victory against Rice, and then once again went off on the biggest stage. In arguably the biggest night game of that first month of football, against number 3 Bama, Mitchell caught 3 passes for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Texas won 34-24, and this was a huge monumental victory. After that, he'd be low-key against both Wyoming and Baylor, before he exploded for a career game against Kansas. Against the number 24 Jayhawks, Mitchell would catch 10 passes for 141 yards and a touchdown. After that, he'd go on a touchdown spree, as he had a score against Houston, 2 touchdowns against BYU, 1 touchdown against Kansas State, and another one against TCU. Sandwiched between all of that was a loss to Oklahoma, and while that was heartbreaking, it didn't quite derail their college football playoff hopes. In that Kansas State game, he went for a career-high 149 yards, and then to finish the season, he was limited against Texas Tech, and then had over 100 yards and a touchdown in the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma State. Mitchell had a tremendous regular season, and they would get matched up against number 2 Washington in the Sugar Bowl. This guy may actually have some sort of record, as every playoff game he's played in, he's had a touchdown. I believe there are 5 of them, and against the Huskies, he had a score. On the season, Mitchell finished with 55 catches for 845 yards and 11 touchdowns. These were pretty insane numbers, and it's even more impressive the fact that it came alongside a guy like Xavier Worthy, who was just drafted into the first round. After the season was over, he would decide to declare for the 2024 NFL Draft, and this was a big deal. While everything did look perfect, there were some issues going on behind the scenes. While he was at both Georgia and Texas, it came out that he's also a type 1 diabetic, and apparently he did not manage his blood sugar levels that well, which led to a lot of mood swings and sometimes lapses in effort. One anonymous NFL scout said, quote, "When his blood sugar's off, he's rude, abrasive, and doesn't pay attention in meetings. It's why you get really bad character reports out of him at Georgia and Texas." There are also some other claims about his coachability, which a bunch of Texas coaches would shoot down before the draft. But I don't really know the whole truth there. According to NFL Mock Database, Mitchell was a projected first-round pick and the 28th best prospect. Obviously, the first round would pass and Adonai would not hear his name, but he'd end up getting taken with the 52nd overall pick in the second round by the Indianapolis Colts. I'm a Colts fan myself, and I was really excited when they got him. The Colts honestly need a good second option to Michael Pittman Jr., and they need a guy who's flashy and has the potential to be a true superstar. I think Adonai Mitchell has that potential. While there do seem to be some character concerns I personally don't think it's that big of a deal, and that he'll get everything figured out once he gets to Indianapolis. And so far, he's proved to look pretty good. Colts fans and writers have said he's been doing really well so far, and I'm really excited to see how he does in this offense. Maybe he'll be Anthony Richardson's go-to receiver the next few years, and will go down as a huge Colts name. We'll really just have to wait and see, but I think they got a tremendous value in AD, and I'm excited to see what happens. But what do you guys think? If you're a Texas, Georgia, or Colts fan, what do you think of AD Mitchell? Why do you think he slipped to the bottom of the second round? And what rookie should I cover next? Before you go, don't forget to also subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about Ennis Rakestraw. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.